What's cracking, Convicted fam? Welcome back to another episode. I got my co-host here with me, as always, Travis Ritchie. What's cracking, my dude?
What's happening, gentlemen?
Oh yeah, we about to jam. And I got my man today, Bobby Jones. Man, you just got a cool ass name, Bobby Jones.
Rolls off the tongue, right?
Yeah, I got stuck with Zach Babcock.
Hey man, at least yours is unique, right? And brandable. Like, there's probably another Bobby Jones here at the hotel right now.
True, true. But Bobby Jones, man. Yeah, man. So you're based out of Delaware. We got to jam quite a few times already now. We're gonna go deep into your story, man. A little bit, if you can, share with us a little bit about your backstory, your experience in prison, how you got out and got to doing what you do now.
Yeah. I'll try to, breeze through this story because it could be long depending on how much detail we go into. But, started out pretty rough, like a lot of people do, right? Grew up super poor, in and out of foster care. My parents were real bad drug addicts.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was crazy because in the beginning, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? Everything seems so normal as a kid.
Yeah.
And you look back later and you're like, oh shit, I now all the clues are there. But foster care and the environment that I was in just led me to get into trouble early. Got arrested the first time at 13, got arrested again at 14, ended up doing 2 years in juvenile facilities. And just a pattern kind of stuck with me at that point. I just had no addictions or anything like that. It was just a criminal behavior. It was just this behavioral pattern that I was in. And it felt so normal for the environment, right?
Yeah.
So got into trouble a few more times as an adult, caught a couple felonies, got to a point where I was looking at a major case, got to my first court date, and they offered me a plea. And I was like, I know this show, I've been through this before. And they were like, this first plea is for 33 years if you plead guilty. Now I'm like, 33 years. I'm like, what? I ain't going down like that. I was 21 at the time, right? So I'm like, 33 years. Like, I can't even begin to wrap my head around that, right? So that was kind of scary. And then the next couple pleas, it was the same thing. They never went down like I had experienced before. So there was a lot of reasons for that. I had some backed up time through some of the other violations that I had. And so I got to this point where I was just like, guilty as all hell, right? Knew that I had no chance of beating the case. So I just started praying, hoping, and wishing. And I didn't even know who or what I was praying to. But I was like, man, if you just give me one more shot at this thing called life, I'm going to take full advantage and help a lot of people as well. And so prayed for 5, 10, 15 years, something that would allow me to get home to my daughter. She had been born when I was in prison before. And got to trial, and my public defender, because I didn't have any money at the time, right? I just was relying on the help that the state was giving me. He came to me and was like, let's take a few people from the holding cell, let's put them up in the jury box, and let's see if the witness/victim can identify you. And I was like, this dude hasn't missed one court date, right? Like, and I did everything in my power, like through all the connections I had to try to reach this guy and see if we could convince him not to come. No luck. Nobody was able to get in contact with him. He showed up to every court date shit he didn't have to be there for. He was there. And I was like, there's no way this guy's not going to identify me. So we go into the jury box, and there's this old white dude, right? Because he's picking from the holding cell at the courthouse, right? So you just have these slim pickings. So there's this old white dude with like literally like a beard and everything, looking like Gandalf and shit. And then there was a Spanish guy and another white dude with tattoos on his face and like those big gauges in his ears. And I was like nobody here looks like me at all, right?
I'm fucked.
So this guy walks into the courtroom, looks me, doesn't even look at anybody else, looks me dead in my face, and in front of the entire courtroom said, the man that did this is not in the courtroom today.
Damn.
Whoa.
Ooh.
And bro, the crazy thing is, I got no explanation for it. Like, no explanation for it, right? Yeah. It's not like after that, I was like, I wanted to go make contact with this guy and thank him, because shit, I might piss him off and he like, whatever. But I didn't know what to make of it at the time. But I also knew, like, throughout my lifetime, I always had this gut feeling that I was destined for something great.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any data to support that, right? Like, all I had was my track record of being a shitbag, know? And so I was like, when I came home, I was like, man, it's gonna take going the extra mile. It's gonna take doing something super different than I've ever done before.
Amen.
So that took me through to the moment I got released.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's the dude lets you know right there. I feel like, just from hearing the story, he's like letting you know that, I'm doing you a solid, like giving you a second chance. Like, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, you know, there's sometimes people need forgiveness for themselves, not for the other person. So I wonder, I've always wondered, like, was this about something for him to release it, to, you know, just to get rid of whatever, you know, anger he might be holding on to or whatever about the situation.
Yeah.
So, you know, but again, it's always been just curiosity. I have no answers for that. But I knew one thing for sure. I was home and I had to do something different. So when I came home, I started putting in applications just like anybody else would. And of course, my felonies were stopping me from getting jobs that I wanted. And so I said, all right, if I want something I've never got, I got to do something I've never done, right? So I said, all right, I'm gonna borrow a suit. I borrowed a suit off my cousin, who is like 6'2", by the way, and I'm 5'9" on a good day. So
on a good day.
So the suit was big, and I was uncomfortable, right? I was definitely uncomfortable. And I started showing up to places that I thought might hire me had they given me an opportunity to interview. And so I showed up at a major retail store and said, I'm here for my interview. My name is Robert Jones, 11 o'clock, I'm here. They're like, sir, we don't have you scheduled for an interview. And I was like, I'm sorry, I did. I scheduled my interview for 11 o'clock. Because in my mind, bro, I did. Like, so to me, I wasn't lying because I literally scheduled it for 11 o'clock in my mind. So I was convinced of it. So I like looked down at my wrist. I was like, no, I'm sorry, I scheduled my interview for 11 o'clock, but no worries, ma'am. I'll just have a seat here and I'll wait. So there I am in this big ass suit, sitting down, waiting for a possible interview at this like entry level position at a retail store, right? Yeah. And so finally this manager comes around and like peeks at me, like literally peeks around the corner. And I wonder to this day, I'm like, had I not been in a suit, would this dude have given me the time of day? Right. And so he pulled me back to interview me. And on the way back to being interviewed, there was like this lady who had been working there forever, and she was like looking at me, looking at him, was like, what are you interviewing for, a salary position? Right? Because it was obvious that he's not even that high up of a manager. So it's obvious I'm not being hired for a super big position. And so she's laughing and joking about me being in the suit. And 3 years later, I was her boss and I ran that whole left side of the store. I'd been promoted numerous times. I got the job, obviously, and it changed my life, man. It changed my life because I broke through things that I never thought were possible, right? So I was like, I can't get a job because of my felony, right? And so, but then I was like, wait, that's not true. I just proved to myself that that's not true. And then I got offered a temporary part-time position at first, right? So they're like, listen, we're gonna fire you after Christmas. And I was like, okay, now I'm being fired, right? Unless I do something. So my limiting belief was I'm about to get fired. My breakthrough belief was like, hey, listen, how can I break through and earn this full-time position? So I didn't even ask for permission to do this, but they had put me in the electronics department. And I get back there and like, I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, but I looked at these TVs back there and I'm like, these things look fucked up, like messed up, excuse me. But the pictures were really, really, really foggy and fuzzy and stuff like that. And so I had to learn about the TVs. I stayed one night overnight and didn't ask anybody any permission, redid all the TVs, and all of them were perfect in the morning. Went home, learned as much more about the TVs as I could, came back, taught everybody in the department everything I knew about the TVs, and within 2 weeks you couldn't buy a TV from us. Like we were sold out, everything that was coming in was sold out. The store manager's like, what the heck is going on? So he comes over there, asks the department, is like, what's going on? They all point at me as like, this guy. And they literally, like 2 months after I'd been released from prison, started there, got this job, now I've secured a full-time job and they made me a manager. So I was like, man, every time I go the extra mile or I do something above and beyond, or every time that I go harder than I otherwise would have, something great comes out of it. And just, it was a breakthrough for me. And I just started to realize, like, as I broke through these self-limiting beliefs, I started to realize that positions in my life that I could see now were possible. And then when I'd get to that position, I'd see another position and I'd realize that's possible and I'd work hard towards that. And I was just smashing through every self-limiting belief I ever had about myself, that I wasn't good enough, that I was dealt a hand of cards that I just had to deal with, and that was just going to be my life. And so started a business, built it to 7 figures, exited, and now I'm rocking with you guys out here in Dallas.
That's dope. That's super dope.
Man, that's incredible. What a story.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Because a lot of these guys that are listening, they have that same limiting belief, right? I can't get a job because of my background. I got to check the box. We talk about it all the time, right? But you took that initiative, right? You were convicted about being something different. So go rewind with me. Talk to me about how when you were inside and then you got out, and based on your past with your mom and dad, your parents, how did that change your perspective on being a father when you got out?
That's a good question. So, people ask me all the time, like, how would I change anything about what I went through? And I absolutely wouldn't.
Same.
I was actually asked the other day because in and out of foster care, I had family that could have taken me in, and I held some resentment for years. They actually took my brother in and didn't take me and my sister in. So I held onto this like resentment for a while. But when you go to realize like the things that are happening to you are guiding you for a reason, like I wouldn't change anything about what I went through. Had they took me in along with my brother, my life might not have turned out the way it is today. I might not be helping people today.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I love that part of it. My oldest daughter was old enough to see some of this climb. Right. So, she was born in '04 when I was in prison on my first adult sentence. And so while she was young, she still remembers going to visit me when we were climbing, right? Because when I came home, I was still living with my uncle on the couch. She was living in Seaford with my wife. I didn't have a place to go really, so I had to work my way up to provide a home.
Yeah.
And so once I finally got that first house, man, it was a single wide trailer, a 2-bedroom trailer in a trailer park, right? And to me, it was a mansion, bro. Like to me, I was like, when I met my wife, I was living in a camper behind my uncle's house with my dad at the time. Yeah, so like this trailer was like a mansion to me. I even remember looking at my wife and saying to her, I'm like, I could live here forever. Because I mean, to me, that's where I was mentally. I was so complacent with mediocrity. But even though like I was celebrating this win, I thought that like I was going to be in the trailer park for my lifetime. You know what I mean? Still. So she looked at me. I remember when I told her I was like, I could live here for the rest of my life. She looked at me and she was like, this will do for now, right? And some people might be like, damn, she was ungrateful. But no, to me, what she told me is she believed in me.
Yeah.
Like she's seen something in me. I was like, oh snap! Like really in that moment, I look back on that all the time. I'm like, man. So being there for my kids obviously was huge because I was in and out of foster care. So being present was just a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And then making sure that the people that mattered the most to me stayed the priority. Like I didn't entertain the people that were close to me that weren't going to be a part of what I was working towards.
Yeah.
Right. So when I got those people out of my life, it made more room for my family, my kids, more time for them. And, I've got 2 great kids and I don't know if I can take the credit for that or not because they're just phenomenal girls, man. And I'm really, really happy to have that strength around me because it motivates me and inspires me.
Big time. No, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. A lot of times I tell folks that, when I'm inside talking to them in the prisons, that things don't happen to us, they happen for us. Right? And so kind of similar to your story of like trying to figure out time, like being present, like for me, I knew if I had enough time, I could figure anything out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't have a good father figure. Dude's just a very interesting, terrible human.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, if I need to figure out this fatherhood thing, I knew 2 things. I needed the greatest mom on the planet, the greatest spouse on the planet, right? Which I found, thank goodness. And I needed time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? And so if I gave myself those 2 things, then I figured I could figure out this fatherhood thing.
Yeah. It's cool that you mentioned the time too, because I think a lot of people, when they talk about their family, they're like, listen, I want to spend quality time with my family, right? They're like, listen, I might not have a whole lot of time with them. So let me like pack in, a movie, some dinner, maybe later I'll read a book, right? I might be gone for the next 4 days, but this moment I'm gonna, and to me, that's the opposite of the way that we should really function with our families. It should be quality of time at work, right? Making sure that every moment that we're working, we're actually working. Like I'm not bullshit and talking about fantasy football or something like that. Like I'm actually on task.
Yeah.
Because in return for spending quality of time at work, we can actually have quantity of time with our family. Which is the way it really should be, right? Because you don't want to be with your family and feel like you have to go from here to there, to this, to that, right? And did you like that? Wasn't that great? Isn't that cool? Everybody good? All right, give me a hug. I'm out of here, right?
Yeah.
No, like it should be leisure time.
Yeah.
It should be chill time. It should be time that's actually spent, getting to know each other more, bonding more, figuring out what's going on today. What was the coolest thing that happened in school today? What was the worst thing that happened in school today? Why? What did you do about this? What's going, like all those things, like that comes from enough time, not
Yeah.
quality time.
Amen.
And that fatherhood, as we all know, evolves,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Heck yeah.
Like life has seasons, you know, and so right now we've got a 8-week-old,
Oh shit.
you know, right, number 4, and so life has those different seasons, and so we've realized, okay, if our kids are in this season right now, they need a certain positive emotional time with us. That could be one-on-one with me and the wife out to dinner. That could be one-on-one cuddling on the couch, just talking about the day. But as those kids develop in life and through their seasons, you have to change your quantity of time with them in order to make sure that you give them what they need, right? So that's what I think is pretty impactful to what you're talking about. Like, to be able, you put yourself in a situation that's incredible, to be able to spend as much quantity of time that you need with those 2 little girls. So sounds to me like you got an amazing partner, and which we talked about her already.
She's pretty rock star, man. Yeah.
She's listening, I'm sure. We appreciate the stories.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, so it sounds like that, but fantastic, man. Good stuff.
Is she happy with the house you guys live in now?
Oh yeah. In fact, dude, I've been trying to I'm trying to get her to sell because the market's crazy, as you guys all know, right? And I'm like, look, we sell, right? Let's go rent a house for a little while just because of how the market is. And we'll build like our dream house. But she's so in love with the house now. She's like, no, we're good right here. And I'm like, I need a bigger garage, my trucks, you know, I need stuff. But no, she's happy, man. And it's been a crazy journey. You know, she's had to take a back seat to pursuing a career for a while I really worked as hard as I did. And now she's on that track, right? Our kids are a little bit older. You talk about quantity of time. Listen, my 17-year-old doesn't want dad shoved up her ass as much these days. But you know, it's still something to be available to them. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing that's really important.
Cool.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. So I want to go back to a really good point you made. You're a living example of living that extra mile lifestyle. I mean, shit, you got a whole podcast about it called the Extra Mile Podcast. When you got out, obviously you didn't have a skill set built in, talents, nothing but that extra mile mindset, you know, and that's what got you to the promotion there, because you went that extra mile, stayed overnight, figured out the TVs, hooked them up, blah, 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 generated all these new sales, and you earned that. One thing I want to point out there is that, you know, us guys and gals that go to prison, we're hungrier than the average, you know, not, there's exceptions, right? But the average human out here in the free world, we will go the extra mile, you know, than they will. And so that's the advantage that we have. And so, you know, if you're listening to this and I know for me, when I was coming out, I don't know about you, I was, you know, nervous coming home the last time, because I was like, man, fuck, I'm coming home and I'm going to actually be a father when I come home, and I got 2 fucking 8-month-old twin boys. Like, how the fuck am I going to support them, you know? I don't have any built-in skill set other than I know I've been good in sales before, but that's about it. But having that just work ethic, dude, that extra mile goes above and beyond. How many times has that paid dividends in your life?
Oh man, tons. And not just in the effort that you put in, but in the effort that you put into learning as well, right? So like, I always say that like the extra mile mindset or the extra mile lifestyle isn't just about like the action, right? Like, action is the key to success, and without that, like, it's not going to work. But you have to go the extra mile with educating yourself, right? And you know, especially us underdogs that come from this, we're usually undereducated in this stuff that we need to know very well: sales, marketing, right? I think, you know, if there's one thing that should be like just emphasized so much for the people that are exiting prison, it's sales, right? Just because knowing sales, people care about results, right? And when you have results, they'll look past whatever you did in your past, right? Like, people care about results. So if you can prove that you can sell something for someone, then you're going to open doors for yourself that you might not have ever realized could open. Sales to me is the master key. Like, it will unlock those doors. So that stuff for me, I mean, I was super nervous, Zach, because I was like, I was given this huge miracle. And I just felt like, you know, my track history tells me I'm going to go out here and blow it.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt like, okay, coming from what I'm coming from, I've got nothing to lose, right? Dean Graziosi writes about this in The Underdog Advantage. When you have nothing to lose, well, then you can put all your chips in, right? Because there's nothing there. There's no value to those chips. I was already at rock bottom.
Yep.
Where was I going to go but up? And so for me, I think we need to learn, especially as we're exiting these facilities and even, as we're in these facilities, focusing on educating ourselves, that, this underdog advantage is a strength. This is all a strength and a blessing that most people don't get to experience. They don't get to experience making decisions where they have nothing to lose. Most of the time, people have a ton to lose, and that stops them from making these decisions. So what's the excuse for us, right? So make the decisions fearlessly because, we also know it can always be worse. We've seen failure in all forms. Failure in the prison yard is a lot different than failure in business. So if we can withstand that, then we can withstand any amount of failure in business.
Yeah, no doubt about it, dude. I love that analogy that you're back against the wall. The only way to go is forward at that point. Dude, because that's exactly what happened time and time again before I broke through in business. Dude, I went and got a title loan on my Chrysler Aspen to get into a mastermind, there was no guarantee. It was just to get in a mastermind to learn how to sell shit online. But I was like, fuck it, I'm going all in because I don't have nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying? So, it's like, you got to make smart, calculated risks. But if you believe in yourself and you bet on yourself and you go all in on yourself and there's no chance of retreat, there's a source of power in that, man.
Think about it. Think about the child of a super successful person, right? As they grow older, they're expected to be as successful already. We're not.
Yeah.
We came from the block, we came from the hood, we came from trailer parks and projects, right? And nobody expects us to win already. So the spotlight's not on us, the pressure's not on us, right? Yeah. We have an opportunity to get the spotlight on us by proving our worth. And I think that's the part that we don't embrace enough. We just don't get the fact that there's just nothing to lose. We've got nothing to lose. Let's go after this. The pressure's not on us. Let's go after it because at the end of the day, if we fail, everybody that you shouldn't even worry about what they think anyway, they expected you to fail anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was the big loss?
Exactly.
Failed gloriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen. So I want to talk about, you can build a lot of cool things. I want to talk about handcuffs to cufflinks here in a second. Before we get into that though, I always like to ask this question, man. What was that moment where it clicked for you, where you became convicted of living an extraordinary life? Was it when you made that prayer, when you're like, hey man, if you just give me this second crack, or was it after that, or what was that moment where it was like, I'm done?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, Zach, because obviously in that moment in court, there was a certain amount of that, right? I was like, okay, holy smokes. I just got smacked in the face with a chance. I always joked I got another second chance because I probably had 30 of them. But I I was like, okay, this is a shot. But the moment that really everything clicked for me, and I can't pinpoint it exactly, but it was as I was breaking through, right? Again, you break through one self-limiting belief and you're like, okay, everything I believed about myself in regards to that this entire time is now untrue. I know that now because I just shattered through that, right? And so then you start to challenge the other limiting beliefs that you have, right? Because now that you proved that what you thought about yourself this entire time was wrong, what else do you believe about yourself that's wrong, right? And so you start to challenge a few of those, break through a few of those, and you realize it's all about challenging those thoughts, right? It's all about challenging those self-limiting beliefs. Everything that you think you're limited to, you're just simply not. And I know that sounds super simple to say, but it is that. Growing up, right, when the teacher in the classroom would say to the classroom, guys, you work hard, you can be anything you want to be. I'm the guy in the classroom that's turning around, talking to the rest of the class like, guys, you better listen to her. She's talking to you. Because she damn sure ain't talking to me, right? But now, when you have that mentality, that's all you believe. You're like, listen, this whole, you can do whatever you want to do in life, that's for other people. That's not for the people that were dealt this hand, right? And so then later in life, I'm like, whoa, not only is it for me, but man, I'm fitting right into this role pretty damn well. You know what I mean? Because I'm just constantly challenging the limiting beliefs that not even the people that have experienced what we've experienced would have naturally, but limiting beliefs that most average human beings have naturally, right? That haven't seen the adversity that we've seen. So now when you start to challenge all those self-limiting beliefs, there's just breakthrough after breakthrough. So I think that there was probably at breakthrough number 3 or 4, Zach, is where I was like, you know what? There's no stopping me now.
That's a beautiful feeling when you get to that point too.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, because dude, just to kind of go back what we were talking about, but because we have that edge, that hunger, whatever you want to call it, that desire that most people don't have. And then when you get that confidence, because when you start to realize, oh shit, like you said, not only is this for me, I'm actually pretty damn good at it. Ain't no stopping that, man. You become an unstoppable force of just pure domination.
You start to rewire your thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to use adversity as an advantage,
Mm-hmm.
not a disadvantage. You know, it's like I tell people all the time, like the greatest feeling in the world is like having 5 extra pounds on your body you want to get rid of because that means we got way too much food and we all ate great last night. Right? Like those are the problems. So when people come to you, and I'm sure that's why all of us have been successful in business, when people come to you, we solve problems. Whether that's in sales, like you talked about, right? We solve people's problems, we solve them quickly. And from a perspective that we've been in, like we've had opportunities given to us in our life where we've been stuck in a box and we had no chance, no choice, no freedom. So now when you have all of these resources, I can solve problems quickly and easily. And by the way, we can be optimistic about all of this.
Yes.
Because where I came from, this is amazing. Yeah. I got all these shoes to pick from in the morning. So life is good.
Yeah.
So it's interesting using that adversity as an advantage.
100%. It's super crazy, man. I think it was like, I can't remember who said it. It was a rapper that said it. He's like, I went from wondering where my next meal's gonna come from to, I wonder where my next meal's gonna come from. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he could buy anything at one point in that story and couldn't afford anything at the other point in the story. So it's like, you know, we realized that through optimism, right? And you know, for the people that have gone through the adversity that most people that have gone through the system have gone through, right? It's one thing. But the other thing is like, we have to be grateful anyway. Like there's so many things that could have changed our course in our life, right? I mean, the fact that we're, you know, here, even in America for the most part, you know, it's like that alone gives us a huge upper hand. So when I think about like foster care in prison and the stuff that I went through, I'm like, yeah, but I still went through it in America and not in Brazil, you know, or in another, you know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, I'm like super grateful still, regardless, take all that away. I'm super grateful because I have opportunity all around me. And I think that we have to hold on to the fact that no matter what we're going through, everything could be worse. And stop complaining and just move on, man, because optimism will power you through that. Gratitude, optimism, oh man, that's where it's at.
You ever seen like those Jerry Springer episodes, right? I was joking about it with my wife, and they're on there and they're like, the reason I'm this way is because, you know, like my mom left me, my dad was a drug addict, I grew up this way, like, and we just walk by like, and
right.
Right? Like, and now what?
Yeah, my sister, so I have me and my sister are Irish twins. She was born 10 months behind me. And so love her to death, love her girls, but she struggled with addiction her whole life. I go back to the first 2-year juvenile facility sentence that I went through at 14. Everybody that I was hanging out with at that time, while I was gone, developed their addiction. Wow. So again, you think about the moment, right? I'm like, damn, I'm locked up. I'm all the way up here, away from my family. I can't see anybody. Level 5, can't see no girls. I feel like I'm going through the worst I could possibly be going through in that moment. Hindsight, it saved my life.
Yeah.
It saved my life. I never developed an addiction because once I came back from that sentence, well, one, I was being tested every single week at probation, and so it kept me off the drugs that everybody around me got on, you know. And my sister, unfortunately, you know, she did use everything that we went through as a kid as an excuse, and she's been a homeless addict numerous times. So this is a great example of how like two people can go through something very similar and look at the outlook on it completely different.
Bro, there's a story that I've heard this many times. I can't remember the first time I heard it, but it's a story. Is like there's these two brothers that grew up and they had this horrible dad that just abused them, treated them like shit, was an alcoholic, wasn't there, all this stuff. And then one of them was in and out of prison his whole life and just on drugs and poor and homeless. And the other one was super successful, built a business, trophy wife, all this stuff, right? And the guy said, asked him, he's asked the dude that had a horrible life, well, why is this? He'd be like, well, how could I live another life with the dad I had? And then he went and asked the dude that was super successful and was like, how did you do this? He said, well, how can I live a life other than with the dad I had?
Yeah.
Same situation. One
Same
just,
reason.
Same reason.
Same reason.
If why they chose it was so
Yeah.
the silver lining, the nugget in that is like, we can't sometimes control the shit that happens to us in life. Like you can't control you had a shitty dad or whatever, but we all get to control how we respond to it and what we do with it afterwards.
Yeah.
That's kind of what that reminded me of there. Let's talk about handcuffs to cufflinks, man. Tell us what's that all about.
So Handcuffs to Cufflinks is a nonprofit that I formed. What we're going to do with the program is we're going to run juvenile, kids that come from the juvenile facilities, when they come out, they're going to run through a 6-week program. And at this 6-week program, we're going to teach them all the stuff that we're talking about here. Travis is working on a lot of this similar stuff, and this goes right along with what you guys are doing here with Convicted Life. But we're going to take them through sales training. We're going to take them through a lot of self stuff the first couple of weeks, creating self-love, understanding that, we have to commit to some kind of personal development, personal growth, taking them through sales marketing training. And then we're going to, at the end of the training, they're given a suit. Well, they go to Men's Warehouse or Joseph A. Bank and they get a suit.
That's
and it
awesome.
connects back to my story with the suit, except yours is going to fit a little better. Yeah. And you put the suit on, man, there's a certain amount of like self-worth and self-value that when you put a suit on, you just like, dang, man, like, I can picture myself in a more successful point of my life just by throwing that suit on real quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to me, that's what really helped me. Like I put this suit on one day and I was like, all right, I gotta envision this ideal self of mine, and this ideal self of mine is successful. How would that successful person dress? Well, I don't wear a suit every day, but I can tell you what, I've pulled my pants up a lot more than I used to. You know what I mean? I wear more fitting clothes than I ever did before. And the reason is like, I wanted to put myself in this position of this successful version of myself. This successful version of myself that I envision, dressed better, talked better, hung around better people. And, some of those things that I could do right then, I started to do right then. And I think that through Handcuffs to Cufflinks is something that we're going to be able to really hit home for the people that are coming back. And then the sales focus is huge because, Zach, you and I have talked about this, but there's so many companies that have been formed around what I like to refer to as the Middleman Model, right? And, for me, I started a roofing business, right? I've never done a roof in my life. My company does 300 plus roofs a year, but I've never laid one single shingle in my life.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, okay, if you can teach sales enough, then not only have you opened up a career for somebody in selling for another company, but if they embrace what I call the middleman model, you can go out and form a company that is your company, that you subcontract the service out, and your company sells the product or the service. Now you're building something of your own. And instead of making 10% commission, you're making 25, 35, 40% profit.
And you're just paying the people to do the work.
Yes.
Yeah, genius.
Yeah.
Let's rewind that and break that down to get that exact model right there.
Yeah, so
you learn a skill, which is selling, which is probably the most valuable skill you can possibly learn on the face of earth. I literally know no better skill than persuasion.
Yeah.
Period. You develop that skill, and then you don't have to know how to build a roof. You don't have to know how to go fix an AC unit. You don't have to know how to do anything, but you can go and sell that service to people that need it and are willing to bust out their credit card and run a charge on it to get that service done. And then you just find the person that knows how to do it, and you pay them, and you pocket the margin.
Correct. And there's so many people. This is a very common thing, but we just don't label it. We don't teach it. We don't train it. And I don't know why, but we don't. Because if you think about it, there's so many companies out there that are just playing the middleman role, right? Especially in the service and trades industries.
Yeah.
But I've got a buddy in Vegas who did jail time too, and he runs a company that connects people to the right attorneys.
Smart.
Yeah.
Brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Like he has a huge network of attorneys he's partnered with. And so people pay him, the lawyers pay him, and he gets money both ways to make the connections to the right attorneys.
Bro, just
Smart.
Brilliant, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, right? If we really believe in sales, right, and we learn sales, the next thing to know is like, if you're going to sell something, be the best at it, right? So for me, when we started the roofing company, I was like, look, I've never done a roof in my life, but I partnered with a guy who I knew was a beast. And by partner, I mean, I made an agreement that he was going to be our subcontractor because I own Brightside 100%. But he was excellent at his craft, right? And I said, okay, how can we take excellent at his craft and make it even better, right? So I said, okay, if we did this material, use this material, they have this warranty, they provide this level of marketing support, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in with this brand and provide, this guy's going to install everything. So I go out there knowing 100% that I'm going into a market as the very best. Nobody can offer a better warranty. Nobody can offer a better craftsman, right? So I went out there with no hesitation in my price. We were the most expensive roofers in our area, and that was by design, right? Because I didn't want to be the cheapest guy. I wanted to be the most expensive because I'm bringing all the value. I'm not competing on price with this guy down here who's doing half of what we're doing on the roof, right?
Right.
So the biggest tool to be successful in sales, in my opinion, is knowing you're the best. Because when you know you're the best, not only do you feel like, okay, it's confident to talk about it, but it becomes your responsibility to talk about it. So when you're talking to a family member or a friend, you don't feel any bit of shame mentioning the fact that you're going to provide this service or can provide the service, because if you don't mention it to them and they go and use another provider, well, then guess what? They didn't get the best, did they? And how is that fair?
Right, exactly.
So
that right there is sage. For real, it is, and that I feel like too many people are scared of sale. Like you ever hear that? Oh, I don't want to come off salesy or whatever. The only reason why you say that is because there's only one or two things. One, you don't believe in what you're selling, and or you care too much about what other people think about you. And if you care about truly helping the other person helping them get the result that they're looking for, and like you said, like you had the best product, then you're gonna do it. Like, dude, when it's time to sell, dude, if I think my product or service can help you, I'm selling like a motherfucker, bro. Yeah. Like I'm trying to do everything I can to get you to bust out that credit card.
And you better, because you owe it to me, right? Yeah. That's the same thing. Like you offer something that can help me. It becomes your direct responsibility to get through that process. And I want to go back a little bit so that people understand how they can do this too, like the whole middleman thing. And I always bring up landscaping. I think landscaping is a great model for this because, for one, right, everybody needs some level of landscaping at some point. So there's that, right? Plus, there's tons of people out there that are grinding with their nose down, just can't even look up for a second to see the woods for the forest for the trees, right? And so that's your ideal subcontractor right there, because they're the ones that are grinding, they're crushing it, they're really mastering their craft. But they don't have time to work on the business, scaling it. They don't have time to market it and sell it at the right margins, right? They're going from job to job off of referral and bottom line pricing and don't know any better.
Yeah.
So if you can go and partner with somebody like that for a subcontractor, now you can go in. There's a program for landscapers called Real-Time Landscaping. It's $99, and you can literally, it's one of the easiest programs I've ever seen. You can take somebody's home and redo the whole landscaping in minutes right in front of them, right? What amazing sales tool is that, right? Yeah. To be able to show somebody what that property is going to look like once it's done, and then say it's going to cost this much. So here's your investment, right? So $99 for the program. And whatever laptop, it'll run on any laptop. So you have this ability right there. And landscapers, painters, there's any service really could go into this middleman model. Yeah. So I just want to give a little bit of tactical advice to those people that are coming out, because this could be done in so many different fields.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I want to even unpack even more since we're talking on sales. You brought up another good point, that you were the priciest, the most expensive by design. We did the same exact thing with our model. Like, dude, we're more expensive than for our production service. I mean, it's $2,000 a month, but we delivered the absolute best. You're not getting better show notes than our content writers, because we hire very specific people. We hire specific on all that. And it's funny you mentioned that, because literally every single piece of our business, most of it is subcontracted out. Like yeah, I know how to produce a podcast because I had to do it myself
Right.
when I first started or whatnot. But you know what I'm saying? Now it's all subcontracted out. It's like,
And it should be. We talked about time earlier, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want your time back, right?
Yeah.
So at least that craft that you had perfected or, got really good at, you had some knowledge of how well the other people were going to do their job, right?
Yeah.
And so that part's important. I think knowledge of the craft is important for sure. But
you don't need it to get it going.
right. You don't need it to get it going. And again, it really comes back to being the priciest, right?
Yeah.
To me, I'd rather apologize one time for the price than apologize for a lifetime of poor service, quality, or product.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so if my company was very local, right? So I could do somebody's roof and walk into the grocery store and see them there with their family. I don't want to be the guy with my head down walking past him because the product that I sold him didn't perform.
Exactly.
I'd rather be able to walk up to him and know for a fact that roof is performing extremely well without him having to tell me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's the way to feel about all your, and that doesn't go with cheap.
Yeah. No.
That doesn't go with cheap, right?
Yeah.
And so it's funny, I'll have people come to me, when I was selling and stuff, they'd be like, hey, you're at 14,000 for this roof. This other guy's at 10. I'm like, wow, they're expensive. And they're like, what? You're $4,000 more. I'm like, yeah, but for what they're doing, I'd be at 7.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And now you get them looking at the details,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, that's where you
That's
want them at.
genius how you reworded that
That's
right there.
great.
I feel like in business, you can either be the cheapest and compete with all your competitors to be the cheapest, which is shitty work, or you can be the best and you get to charge the highest prices, but you got to be really fucking good at it. You know what I'm saying? And through my experience, being the best is way better than being the cheapest. But who knows? Yeah, being the cheapest might be your thing, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah, but that middleman model works, man. I grew this business. I was able to, as we were talking about getting our time back, one of the things for me, and I loved sales, right? I loved sales so much. So a lot of times when you're delegating, you're outsourcing, a lot of times it's the stuff that you don't love to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I started with that stuff, but I got to a point where I was like, man, because I'm so good at sales, it's also for me easy for me to teach to another salesperson, right? So the same enthusiasm I would use in a house to transfer over to the homeowner, I could now use onto the next salesperson because I was so good at it. It made it something that was easier to delegate than something that I might not have wanted to do as much as selling.
Yeah.
But it gained my time back to work on the big picture.
Yeah.
And that to me was something that was huge as I got to a point where I could eventually exit my business. I just kept giving up power to people that, are they going to make decisions as good as me every time? No, but that means that they might make a decision better than me too, right? Because I've given them the ability to do so, right?
Sage.
So you have to let it go of the horns a little bit and let go of the reins a little bit for people to make and put their own twist on things. Yeah. I say if they can do it 80% is good, right? If they can do it 80% as good as you can, delegate it out. Because the other 20% is probably gonna be their twist on it anyway.
Yeah. Amen. 100%, dude. All right, so let's I'm gonna ask this question as we begin to wrap this up. I got 2 questions for you, because I know you got to jet out to the airport. And
Literally
catch
jet
that
out.
Right? One real quick is I think we're gonna name this episode the Middleman Model for sure.
Cool.
That's cool. I like that name. It's got
I was a middle child too, so.
Ooh.
Keep going.
The 2 questions. One is, what's the best piece of advice? Like, I know there's so much that you can give to someone on this answer, but what's like the first thing that jumps in your mind if you're speaking to someone getting ready to come home or that just got home, but they're still like uncertain to live a convicted life? Like, what does that look like? How can they tap into that?
Yeah, patience is going to be a big thing, man. We're not patient, right? We're used to the hustle. We're used to being able to go to the block and flip something quickly, right? This isn't the short game, right? So patience is going to be the biggest thing that I advise to really embrace and use as a strength, because it's going to take time, right, to learn some things. It's going to take time to get going. It's going to take time, but what else is going to take your time is the decisions you've been making so far, right? Like, it's so funny how impatient we can be, but then we can make a decision that could give up 5 years of our lives in a fucking blink of an eye.
Yeah,
It's good.
Right? So like patience, right? Now you've got a chance. You've got time. Work hard, but be patient, because you're not going to see the results overnight. You're not going to get rich overnight. You're not going to be, build a business that's 7 figures and exit in a year. Like, I got released in 2007. That didn't happen to me until 2019. So this is something that is a long game. My life transformed a lot in that time, but the thing that mattered the most was understanding that, I'm not going to win tomorrow. I'm going to win next year. I'm going to win the year after. I'm going to win even bigger the third year.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that, man. Cool thing about us convicted felons is we develop that patience out of necessity, sitting around waiting for that out date. At least I have. I'm a lot more patient than what I was before, even though, I think that's, like you said, though, it is human nature to want shit now. The instant gratification life that we live in.
And that's more the world that we live in, right? Like, think about it. Everything. I mean, you can order a camera right now on Amazon Prime and it's delivered tonight to your house. Like, of course, we're living in a world where patience isn't the most talked about and discussed thing, but let's face it, it takes patience.
Amen. So 100%. So last question is, where can people find you, man? Anybody that wants to come check out you? I mean, we know you got the Extra Mile podcast. Y'all definitely got to go jam out to that. But where's the best place we can come jam out with you?
Yeah, so all my social media handles are a variation of Mr. Brightside. So it's tough. I know it is. It's tough. So my Instagram handle is probably going to be the easiest one. It's Mr. Brightside, but it's _Mr_Bright_Side_. But the Extra Mile podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of your podcasting platforms. So you can definitely find me through that. And I think that's going to be the main couple of sources there to check me out. So,
absolutely, man. Well, appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a blast as always. We're gonna have to do it again.
Of course.
And have a safe flight, my man.
Yes, sir. Will do. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, guys. Make sure you keep tuning in, coming back every single week. Go check out all the resources on convictedlife.com. And until next time, stay living that convicted life. Let's go. Boom.
Boom.